Okay, next on the step on the no-brainers to go ahead and figure out what electronics that you're going to use, and kind of need to do that for a particular reason. But personally, what I use, any 8 to 12 amp speed control work fine. This is actually a Turnigy 12 amp. I kind of prefer the 10s; they're a little bit lighter, but anyway, there's a 12 amp ESC, but 8 to 12 will work. I recommend a 1500 kV, 1500 to 1700 kV motor if you are going to run 2-cell, which is actually what I recommend. You can run 3-cell, but if you do, you need to step down to a 12 to 1300 kV motor. This is a 2730 1500 Turnigy motor. Works real well, especially if you're trying to keep everything inexpensive. Use a prop saver, an O-ring. Use a GWS 9050 prop. The motor mount I use, you can use several different motor mounts. You can actually glue a plywood mount in if you like, and use this mount. Personally, as I'll show you later, I like to take this mount off and put it directly in here. Then the plane is set up to glue this directly in, or a plywood mount, either way you choose to do it. It's also designed to use one 9-gram servo to do work both ailerons, and then 2 5-gram servos, one for the elevator, one for the rudder. And that's pretty much all electronics that you're going to need, depending on what receiver you're going to use. I use Spectrum, so 6100 works perfect. Something in that way, just something that with minimal range. Next step is I go ahead and center the servos. This is a little product by Turnigy. I like to go ahead and center my servos before I glue them in. And by doing this, you don't have to worry about them later on. And this way you can go ahead and get your control horns, your servo horns in the right place, get them centered. And this product, like I said, is real easy. Just plug your servos in. Plug a battery in, or in my case I have a switch in the middle, and all you do is go ahead and set it to the neutral position, and then put your servo horn on as centered as you can get it. That way you don't need any sub trim. A lot of times you end up having to use some sub trim, but just try to minimize it as much as possible. Let's see. And looks like this one's going to need a little bit of sub trim. It's just nothing we could do about that one. So, and as you can see with this little product by Turnigy, you don't need this. You could just use your receiver and plug it in. This is very inexpensive, but it works well. It's got a few different modes. One's neutral, to find neutral. It's also got a mode just to kind of work the servo back and forth. Kind of breaks your gears in and the gear train. It also has like a manual mode where you can actually just turn the knob to see how much travel you got, make sure it's going to be enough for your plane, help you choose which servo horns you want to use. So anyway, this works really well. Go ahead and center your servos. Also, use this time to drill your holes, to enlarge the holes if you need to for however you're going to do your control system. I'll show you how I do mine later on. But go ahead and drill your holes at this time. And then you can also choose whether or not you want to use the servo screws to hold the servo horns in. I personally do, but they're a pretty snug fit, and I know a lot of people don't use them. So that's your next step. And after this will be go ahead and gluing the plane, the fuselage and wings together. Okay, next step is to go ahead and glue your wing halves together. And your fuselage at the same time. When we do this, we will be installing the servo. Makes it a lot easier to get in and leaves a tighter fit. As you can see, everything is already tabbed for you, so it makes it really easy to line up. Can't really get it off too easily, and that's pretty much it. So the way we're going to do is we're going to start by putting the left wing half in. Now, this foam, when I buy it, doesn't always come the same thickness, so sometimes this foam may go in really tight, and other times it may just fall right in. Unfortunately, that's something that I cannot control. I just buy my foam out, so not always exactly the same. So it all works. It doesn't matter. I've built them with it really tight, and I've built it with it loose. Really makes no difference. But sometimes, it'll just be a little bit tougher to go in. Anyhow, the other thing I like to do is get 2 boxes about the same size, but what you really want is them the same height. When you're gluing your plane together, makes for like a great work area, no matter which direction you're going. And you can stand with your plane, keeps everything nice and perpendicular, gives something to pin to later on when you're doing your control surfaces, makes it really nice. So that's the first step, is to go ahead. As you can see, everything should line up perfectly. Not much to it. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and slide our servo in. Go ahead and just run your wire right down the hole. And then it's going to face to the forward. So just going to slide right in, just like that. Nice and simple. Nothing difficult about that. Now what we're going to do, before we slide the other side in, what we're actually going to do is go ahead and put some glue right down this seam. And just to cover, you don't need much. Now when we do this, we're going to make sure that we put a little bit on, on the surfaces of this other side. So where the tabs came through for this wing half, we'll put a little bit so they'll actually glue to this one. Again, you don't need much, so don't worry about if you don't apply very much, but try not to apply too much and then get your weight up. So as far as the glue goes, there's several different types. This is the 3M 4475. It works really good. Another, probably the most popular glue with EPP is welder glue. A lot of people have trouble finding this. It's actually hard to find in my area. I typically have to order it. Down here in Texas, I hadn't had too much luck finding it. But this 3M 4475, you can Google it. You can find that. Pretty much anyone can get 3M products for you. So it's up to you which one you use. They both tend to work really well. Since it's harder for me to get the welder glue, I'll be using the 3M glue. But I do like the welder glue personally on my hinges. So you'll see me use that exclusively on the hinging technique later on. Again, when you do the glue, just put a couple drops and just work your way right down the plane. This glue does dry pretty quick, but the best thing to do is when you do something, kind of let it sit overnight or most of the day. Of course, like any glue, it depends on your conditions as to how fast it is going to dry. So after you get your glue down, just go ahead. It doesn't matter if you start the front or back because of the tabs. So like I said, it just makes it nice and easy. So you slide your tabs in place. And when you first assemble it, you don't have to be real critical. Just basically, you just want to push it together as well as you can. Kind of work it back and forth. Like I said, typically it will fall together, but when your foam's tight, you may have to work it a little bit more. And that's all you do. Just work it down just like that. And then when you're done, stick it in between 2 boxes. Main thing you're looking for is just to make sure that all this stays nice and perpendicular. That's really, especially on a foam airplane, that's very important. You can make it fly without it, but it just flies so much better, especially when you're doing knife edge, rolling circles, Harriers, things like that. You really want to try to keep that as perpendicular as possible. And if you're lazy and you like things fast and easy, then the box method works perfect. And also works perfect because you can go right into, while that's drying, you can go right into gluing in your carbon fiber. So that's what we'll do next.